back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined now by United States Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, Senator. How do you like the snow?
Yeah, I enjoy the snow, Hugh. Yeah, I'm on a little bit different day here. We had a snow day earlier this week, so had the kids and wasn't able to come on my usual Tuesday slot. So thank you for your indulgence and forbearance.
Well, I have two big questions. One, will the bird rule survive unscathed? In other words, do you expect Joe Manchin to stick by his promise on the Bret Baier show? And two, I'm calling it the Perry Mason impeachment because we all know acquittals at the end of the show. Am I wrong?
Well, Hugh, you're dating yourself with the Perry Mason impeachment. You know, my generation might call it the Matlock impeachment. I think it appears to be a foregone conclusion, Hugh, from the vote we had last week. As you know, I said from the very day that the House had its snap impeachment of President Trump that it was beyond the Senate's constitutional authority to have a impeachment proceeding against a former president. And I think it increasingly strikes most Americans as very strange. The Senate is going to spend our time trying to impeach, convict, and remove from office a man who left office 2 weeks ago at a time when there are so many other challenges facing this country. Now, on your first question, I do believe the so-called bird rule will stay in effect, not just because Joe Manchin has said he would not vote to overturn it, but also Kyrsten Sinema. And I think there's some other senators who haven't spoken out in public as well. Now, for your audience who don't understand all the arcana of Senate procedure, which I've got to admit a lot of senators don't either, most bills in the Senate take 60 votes to pass. There's something called the reconciliation procedure that is geared primarily towards taxing and spending measures, and that can pass by just a simple majority. Robert E. Byrd, whose seat Joe Manchin now occupies, crafted a rule 30 years ago that said you can't squeeze policy changes into a so-called reconciliation bill. So you can't raise the minimum wage, you can't grant amnesty, you can't make Washington, D.C. a state. And when that is challenged, if anyone tries to do it, the parliamentarian strikes it down. Now, theoretically, you could have a simple majority vote overturn the parliamentarian, but that would be a truly radical step. It's not been done to my knowledge. There were some Republicans who advocated that we should do it in 2017 when we used the reconciliation package on a traditional tax measure, but Republicans refused to do it then. I know a lot of radical Democrats would like to do it. They want to ram through extreme legislation on a simple majority vote. But I think there's a handful of Democrats who will respect the rules and the traditions of the Senate.
Now, Senator, a couple things. First of all, Perry Mason 2020 was on HBO with Matthew Reeves as Perry Mason. So I'm not dated. You're just simply not up to date.
I'm not hip enough. I don't pay for an HBO subscription.
There you go. There you go. It's a great show, by the way. Matthew Reeves is a great actor. Second thing, though, on the bird rule, I believe you used reconciliation to move the repeal of the so-called tax on Obamacare that passed and was challenged by the parliamentarian, and the parliamentarian ruled that was a tax issue, so it was appropriate for reconciliation. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, that's right, Hugh. So when you say that reconciliation touches on taxing measures and spending measures, most Americans would think that includes health care. And it doesn't include all health care. When we tried to pass an Obamacare repeal bill, there were some things that we couldn't do in reconciliation. Just like when the Democrats passed Obamacare in 2010, they couldn't do everything on reconciliation they wanted. That's why it had so many unintended consequences. However, a lot of our healthcare policy in this country is driven by the tax code. So, for instance, the exclusion that most of your listeners get on taxes for their employer-provided health insurance on the job. So the individual mandate of Obamacare, which was the most hated provision, which fined people for not being able to afford the health care that Obamacare made it unaffordable in the first place, was very much a tax. It was enforced by the IRS. It was a part of the tax code. The Supreme Court ruled in 2012 the only way it was constitutional is that it was a tax. So obviously it was an appropriate topic for a reconciliation bill in a way that D.C. statehood or amnesty for illegal aliens is plainly not appropriate for reconciliation.
Now, I've heard liberals say a $15 minimum wage will generate new taxes by virtue of raising the income of people at the bottom level. By that interpretation, the butterfly's wings takes over. What do you think the parliamentarian ought to say and will say about the $15 minimum wage?
So yeah, Hugh, it is a very the Byrd rule is actually kind of a collection of rules. They're all very complicated and tedious, and I won't take your audience through all of them. But one of the standards is a fiscal impact cannot be merely incidental. That's the exact words, merely incidental. So you could argue anything. You could argue that building a wall is going to help the or help the budget because you're not going to have to spend so much on welfare for illegal aliens. You could argue that amnesty is going to help the budget because you're going to have more people authorized to work and therefore paying more taxes. So you can use the butterfly's wings theory, as you put it, for almost anything. But the Byrd rule is designed to make sure that reconciliation procedures are only used for those kind of core taxing and spending measures. And once you get very far from like core taxes, like we did in 2017, just cutting rates, or the healthcare policy that we conduct through the tax code, the parliamentarian usually rejects that.
And very quickly, are you confident that the Byrd rule is going to come through this in good shape?
I am pretty confident about it, Hugh. I wouldn't say 100% confident, but I'm pretty confident.
That is great news. That's the best news of the day. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you.